Suffering, in the Buddhist view, isn't just random misfortune or external hardship. It stems from a fundamental misapprehension, a deep-seated lack of clear seeing that lies at the very root of our experience. This foundational lack of understanding is what is called avidya in Sanskrit, commonly translated as ignorance. But this isn't merely not knowing facts. It's a profound misperception of the nature of reality itself and our place within it. Think of it not as an empty space where knowledge should be, but as an active distortion, a kind of veil or a fundamental error in processing reality. This error isn't intellectual in the first instance. It's experiential, shaping how we feel, think, and act at the deepest levels. It's the primary condition that sets the entire cycle of suffering in motion. Buddhist teachings point to this ignorance as the first link in the chain of dependent origination, pratityasamutpada. This chain describes how phenomena arise in dependence upon other phenomena. And at the very beginning of this causal sequence, leading ultimately to suffering, aging, and death, is ignorance. Because of ignorance, mental formations arise. Conditioned by mental formations, consciousness arises and so on through name and form. The 6 sense bases, contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, and finally, suffering. Placing ignorance at the very start highlights its foundational role. It's the initial flicker that ignites the whole process. So, what exactly is being misunderstood? The core of this ignorance is a failure to see the 3 fundamental characteristics of existence: impermanence, anicca, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. Instead of seeing things as they are constantly changing, inherently unstable when clung to, and lacking any permanent, independent essence, ignorance perceives stability, satisfaction, and a solid, enduring self. The most significant manifestation of this ignorance is the belief in a permanent, independent self, an Atman. We have this strong, intuitive feeling of being a distinct, unchanging I residing somewhere within us, separate from the rest of the world. This feeling is incredibly powerful and forms the basis of our identity. However, Buddhist analysis reveals that this self cannot be found when we look closely at the ever-changing collection of physical form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness that make up our experience. These are the 5 aggregate skandhas, and they are all impermanent and interdependent. The self we identify with is an imputed label, a conceptual construct overlaid onto this dynamic, selfless process. Ignorance takes this conceptual label and reifies it, treating it as a concrete, independent entity. This misperception of a solid self immediately creates a division between self and other, mine and not mine. From this perceived division springs the fundamental drive to protect and enhance the self, leading to craving for what is pleasant and aversion to what is unpleasant. These defilements, craving, tanha, and aversion, divesa, are direct products of ignorance. They are fueled by the mistaken belief that there is a stable I that can acquire lasting happiness by grasping at things or pushing things away. Without the fundamental ignorance of non-self and impermanence, craving and aversion wouldn't have the same grip. If you truly saw that everything, including yourself, is constantly changing and interdependent, the urge to desperately cling to fleeting experiences or identities would naturally diminish. The suffering that arises from not getting what we want, or getting what we don't want, or losing what we have, is entirely predicated on the belief that there is a fixed I to whom these things are happening and who would be permanently happy or unhappy as a result. Ignorance isn't just a passive state of not knowing. It's an active, dynamic process of misconstruing. It operates by projecting qualities onto reality that aren't inherently there, permanence onto the impermanent, satisfaction onto the unsatisfactory, and self onto the selfless. This projection creates the world of our ordinary experience, a world of solid objects and enduring individuals, seemingly existing independently. This perceived solidity and independence is the illusion generated by ignorance. Consider how this plays out in daily life. We chase after experiences, possessions, or relationships, believing they will provide lasting happiness because we mistakenly believe there is a stable I who can possess that lasting happiness. When these things inevitably change or end, we suffer because our underlying assumption of permanence is violated. We defend our opinions, our reputation, our possessions fiercely because we identify them with the solid self we perceive ourselves to be. Challenges to these are felt as direct threats to our very existence. All this grasping and aversion, all this struggle and dissatisfaction, is conditioned by the initial, foundational error of ignorance regarding the true nature of reality and self. The cycle of samsara, the continuous round of birth, death, and rebirth characterized by suffering, is perpetuated by this ignorance and the actions, karma, that spring from it. Actions motivated by craving, aversion, and delusion, which is another facet of ignorance, create karmic imprints that propel us through future lives, experiencing the results of those actions. The wheel keeps turning because the root cause, the fundamental misperception, remains unaddressed. So, while craving and clinging are often highlighted as the direct causes of suffering in the Four Noble Truths, the teachings on dependent origination reveal that ignorance is the prior condition that gives rise to craving and clinging. It is the fertile ground in which all other defilements and the resulting suffering can grow. It is the fundamental error that needs to be corrected for the cycle to cease. The path to liberation in Buddhism is, therefore, fundamentally a path of overcoming ignorance. The antidote to avidya is wisdom, prajna, specifically the wisdom that directly perceives the true nature of reality, impermanence, non-self, and emptiness, the lack of inherent existence. This isn't just intellectual assent to these ideas. It's a deep, experiential realization that transforms one's entire way of perceiving and interacting with the world. Cultivating this wisdom involves various practices, including ethical conduct, which calms the mind and reduces the grosser manifestations of craving and aversion, concentration, which stabilizes the mind and makes it capable of clear seeing, and insight meditation, which involves direct investigation into the nature of mind and reality. Through sustained practice, the grip of ignorance begins to loosen. The illusion of a solid self starts to dissolve, and the inherent impermanence and interdependence of all things become clearer. This process isn't about destroying something that exists. It's about seeing through an illusion. It's like waking up from a dream. In the dream, the dangers and desires felt very real. Upon waking, the suffering associated with them vanishes because the fundamental misperception that the dream world was real is gone. Similarly, when the ignorance regarding the true nature of reality is overcome, the suffering that arises from clinging to the illusory self and world ceases. Overcoming ignorance means seeing things as they are, free from the distortions of self-centered projection. It means understanding experientially that there is no permanent I to defend or satisfy, and that all phenomena are fluid, interconnected, and lack inherent, independent existence. This understanding doesn't lead to nihilism or passivity. Rather, it liberates energy previously bound up in maintaining the self-illusion and engaging in the endless cycle of grasping and aversion. The cessation of suffering, nirvana, is the state where ignorance and its resulting defilements have been extinguished. It is the unconditioned state, free from the causes of suffering. This is achieved not by adding something to oneself, but by removing the fundamental impediment, the ignorance that prevents us from seeing the freedom that is always already present when the mind is not clouded by misperception. Understanding ignorance as the root cause is therefore crucial, as it directs our efforts towards the most fundamental point of transformation on the path to liberation. Addressing the symptoms like craving or anger is necessary, but without uprooting the cause, ignorance, they will continue to arise. The ultimate aim is to sever that root completely.